Good morning. Please grab some more coffee, donuts, and a seat. We're going to get started. Morning. Let's see. We are live streaming this morning. We're going to turn it off right before we get started with Q&A. If you haven't been here before, welcome. I'm Vicky. I'm the founder of this happy little event. This is our 54th Data and Donuts. Very exciting. Compiler, we're a small software consultancy. We're here in Los Angeles, based in this office as well. And we help local governments with digital transformation projects. This morning, I am super excited to welcome you also to the Lacey campus, the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. This building is owned by the Department of Water and Power. If you haven't been here before, highly recommend wandering around a little bit. Ask me, I can show you around. We're in the half of the building that is the co-working space and where the Clean Tech Incubator's team is based. They work on a lot of local grants. The other half of the building is an incubator, lots of hardware, software labs, here in some classrooms. Got a couple events here. You can grab a picture and Google these yourself that are coming up we thought you might like, including our event next month. A couple of jobs in the region. Might be interested to a few of you guys. And our jobs boards, this is in the bottom of our emails that go out, so this is pretty easy to get. And lastly, this morning I'd like to introduce you to our two speakers. We have Sabrina Davis, who's the Director of Customer Experience at Metrolink. We've had Metro and LADOT here, so we're finally excited to also welcome Metrolink. And Cody Kraatz, the vendor of Metrolink, who's also the founder and CEO of Simplify Transit. And this morning, I'll let them take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Just told I have to make sure to speak directly into the mic here. Thanks for coming. We're going to talk today about really a program that Metrolink has launched and done a really phenomenal job with, and also, so more from a communications, outward-facing side, but also dive a bit into the data that makes that work. And the real theme here is how Metrolink shifted from thinking about a single channel or a couple specific channels to really an omni-channel approach. That was actually the RFP we responded to, was an omni-channel alerts feed, and so an omni-channel alerts program, and that is really what we've responded to. My background actually is also in public transit, so for those of you who work for a transit agency, I've been in shoes similar to yours. I worked for Santa Clara VTA, managed digital communications, website redesign, and really through that, it was really the website redesign that helped me understand the power of transit data. All the route schedule tables are powered by GTFS schedule data, so we needed to be able to process that a lot faster than how that was being done, and I needed to understand how all that data worked, the alerts feed and real-time information. We also had to go buy tools for that. So I learned a lot being inside a transit agency about what was needed, and Simplify Transit is launched to build a suite of digital communications tools. We're focused on service alerts currently and text and email notifications, but really a full suite of tools that will help agencies help their riders better and ultimately grow ridership. We have customers, we're in about 5 states now, Canada and New Zealand, and hopefully expanding here in SoCal pretty soon. So what we heard from Metro, and I'll turn it over to Sabrina in a bit to talk about exactly how they executed this, but I do want to thank Lisa Barr at Metrolink for having the vision and to see that there's a need for a way to more efficiently get alerts out and get them everywhere, that there were channels that were being missed. There was a lot of energy being put into getting alerts on Twitter or X, I still call it Twitter, and that same information wasn't getting on the website, or it was getting on the website via X, but it wasn't getting into the apps, and riders really needed more train-specific information and much more targeted, so that was what Lisa wanted to find, and also get all that in place before the World Cup, Olympics, really big, special, major events that are coming. Since we launched, this is just a chart showing the results of Sabrina's excellent campaign, which she'll talk more about, getting the word out there. We're approaching 8,000 active subscribers, so those numbers go up and down. People will subscribe and either move, or they were just here temporarily and they'll unsubscribe later. Mostly SMS, and I think that number is actually growing. And then you can see there's even been an uptick here last month in January. So expecting to see another big spike at some point this summer during the major events. So I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina to talk about herself and the campaign.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Davis. I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Metrolink, and I've been there for about 8 years. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I am passionate about two things: leadership and improving the customer experience, and doing that with technology. So really grateful for the opportunity to partner with Cody and to bring this project to life. When Lisa brought this project forward, it lagged a little bit with another member of my team. So I went to him and I asked him if I could take over the project and get it past the finish line. And I'm really grateful for the support of all the team members at Metrolink who helped make it happen. So on May 23rd, we were able to launch the tool, modernizing the delivery of real-time service information to riders. As Cody mentioned, we were one of those agencies who was primarily delivering service information, disruption information to our passengers and our customers by social media. And as a marketer, when I first joined Metrolink 8 years ago, I was like, what is this? Why is this happening? And then it became just the norm. And we all got really, really comfortable with it. So when Lisa joined and she kind of pushed this other idea forward, it was a challenge that we wanted to take on, and we were grateful for a new path forward for this. We had 7 X channels, if you can imagine, one for each line where we posted service information. Like, really not a very efficient way to manage our alerts. So the importance of doing this at this time is what's to come in LA. We're preparing for these major events, for World Cup in June, for the Olympics, for the Paralympics. These are when the world stage is going to be upon us, and the world is looking at transit in LA, and we want to be a better provider and we want to offer a better service to our customers for their transit experiences. So this is just some campaign creative. Really, the key information that we needed customers to know is they needed to, here was how they were going to get the information, and here is where they needed to subscribe. So those were the two key messages. My objective with Metrolink Alerts and working with Simplified Transit is primarily to provide the customer with the information and let them make the decision that's right for them. So if we're having a service interruption and you're 20 minutes away from a train station and you get that alert, you can make a decision about, okay, I'm gonna wait this out, or I'm gonna choose to drive instead. But giving them the option to do with their time what they want to do, and it's the value of their time, because people are going somewhere. They're not taking Metrolink just for the fun of it. They're taking Metrolink because they want to get somewhere. So we want to empower them with the information to do that efficiently and without disruption to their lives. Just some customer sentiment when we announced that we were going to move away from social media. Many of our customers told us that they were only on X for Metrolink service alerts, which is just not, I'm disappointed that we made them do that. And there were some naysayers, trust me, and there are still some people out there that want to go to Twitter for their alerts, but we made a transition as part of this program. We said we would remain on social media for a month or two after the launch, and then we would discontinue, and we've really had no issues since then. It's just a matter of training your customer for the behavior that you want them to see. And SMS or email directly to you, giving you that information, is just a better experience overall. And we had to do some convincing for some of our customers, but generally they open their arms to the new technology. Recently, we did a survey to see how the platform was performing, what their customer experience was receiving the alerts. First of all, we were pleased to see that we're sitting at about 60% positive sentiment, even 25% is fair, so there's some improvement to do, which is what we're happy, we welcome that feedback with open arms. We always want to do better for our customers and improve their experience. But generally 60% was fantastic. In terms of timeliness, right? So we want to make sure we're getting them the information in time for them to make that decision. So usually and always timely, we were sitting at about 50%. 47%, sometimes it was timely and it was often delayed. So that tells me that our team has work to do. As part of this, we're working with Cody at Simplified Transit. We're gonna look at activating an automated trip alert feed or trip updates feed so that these alerts can be sent, some of the alerts can be sent automatically through the platform, which will improve that, timeliness of receiving those alerts. How easy was it for people to sign up? Definitely we're sitting at, more than, 50%, somewhat easy, another 25%. People, generally, if you're tech savvy, this is not a difficult platform in which to subscribe. Definitely, if you have some customers that are more technologically challenged, we're always, providing that information, providing those opportunities to help them. I've set up, pop-ups at Union Station, offering to sign people up right then and there to get them the information that they need. We'll work with people to get them the information. Cody's also going to be helping us implement a new automated welcome campaign through the platform where we're, if people are registering but they don't follow through and finish their registration, this will trigger them to do that. So continually making improvements to the platform and to that customer experience. And then, do you feel the alerts you receive are relevant to your specific trains or stations? They are highly customized. People are picking their specific trains. They're picking their specific stations, so they only receive information about their trains that they're riding, their stations, and then they're selecting the times of day that they want to receive them and the days of the week that they want to receive them. So, recently we made an error and we sent, a text to the wrong people on the wrong subscribers. We sent it to system-wide instead of just one line, but that was okay because it was a Friday, and less people travel on Friday. So we didn't impact or give wrong information to as many people. So because of that customization. And I tell you that story because behind the scenes, there's a team of dedicated professionals at Metrolink, but we are human and we make errors. But definitely with that customization, it limits those kinds of situations. And again, the platform is very customizable to what you need and your transit experience. How do you receive Metrolink alerts? 65% receive text alerts, and then 15% receive both, as well as email being the other format, as you would expect. Response count timeline, so email only, this is when we sent the survey. So we, at first, distributed the survey link to just our email subscribers, and we received about 200 responses. Then we implemented and used the campaign platform in the Simplified Transit software, and we did it to email and SMS subscribers, and our survey responses jumped to an additional 1,000. So there's power in this tool to do communications outside of just service information, and obviously surveying your riders is a really important part of that. And I'll pass it back to Cody.
Thank you, Sabrina. And I do want to reiterate something that Sabrina touched on. Like, we build software that helps agency staff people, human beings, do what they're trying to do a lot more easily. And really everything that we build in there is, trying to leverage automation and really trying to help them not have to think as hard, not have to actually conceptualize what's on the screen here. This omni-channel approach is very challenging. And I've been in those shoes too. I've written service alerts at VTA, and it's hard to write it in a way that works everywhere. And there are platforms out there where they give you the option, for example, to customize the tweet. And I actually believe, having had the word social media in my job title previously, I believe no one should spend any time thinking about putting out a tweet or an X, whatever you call it. I don't know what you call it now. And we just fully automate that so that no one is having to spend any time or energy or taxpayer dollars, delaying getting the information out. The way we achieve this is basically you follow the GTFS real-time service alerts data standard. And for those of you who are here because you love data, that might perk up your ears. And then this is where we start to those who are more on the marketing communications side, this might, your eyes might glaze over. But the reason that matters is that's what gets this information into the apps. So where Metrolink started, there was a focus on X, which is sub 20% of your riders. And as soon as you start publishing in that data standard, now you're in Transit, Google Maps, in LA, Apple Maps. In LA, you've got all of these moving. And you really just open up a lot of possibilities, not only text and email notifications if you're working with us, but also digital signage. And that is actually a huge challenge. And for Metrolink and a lot of our other customers, it's more that we're setting the stage for them to go buy new signage when they're able to. And then there's a major capital project. But when you build your alerts pipeline around this data standard, you have future-proofed your alerts, whether you're working with us or someone else. You rebuild your website around this data standard like I did at VTA, and no matter what, that as whatever the source of that data is, it's going to work in your website as intended. So this is, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the data standards, I just wanted to, demystify and also maybe show how hard this stuff is to work with. It is, this is GTFS schedule data. Most people don't want to spend their days digging into this kind of data. Some people really do. And maybe this is an audience that leans more on that side. I'm kind of in the middle. I see it as useful for the purpose it serves, which is describing in this language that software can understand the complexities of service, like LA Metro bus service is very complex to summarize. But a GTFS file that Nina here produces, that is the only way to capture all of that. But it's really intended to be read by software. And then that software, various kinds of software, again, not just trip planners, but any kind of software that's consuming that, including a website, Simplified Transit Subscriptions consumes it, is going to make that helpful to riders. So that's the purpose of GTFS schedule data. It's not for apps, it's not for us, it's for riders. And having been inside of an agency and kind of moved the ownership, if you will, of GTFS schedule from IT and then operations and then planning, and ultimately I was dependent on it for the website. So I can't wait 2 weeks, when people are going on our website expecting things in 2 hours. This is just a kind of a snapshot of Metrolink's core GTFS files. You can just see how they interrelate and reference each other. This screenshot is a look at kind of a sample of a single GTFS real-time service alert. There are 3 real-time feeds, and a lot of times people talk about having real-time or not having real-time as if it is a monolithic thing. It is absolutely not. There are 3 separate and interoperable feeds that need to be fetched separately and can come from possibly 3 different vendors. Most of our customers are getting the first 2 from like a CAD AVL vendor. Vehicle positions is where is your vehicle on a map in time, and actually a field that had been empty and just been sitting there latent for quite a while until the pandemic was occupancy status. I know MBTA has spoken here, like they were the first ones to get out there during the pandemic with filling that data in it, and those who had APCs on the buses had to figure out how to start doing something that was really just waiting for them, but there needed to be that purpose. Again, the riders actually now care about how crowded the bus is. All of a sudden, now people are providing that data. Trip updates is what people mostly think about when they think about real-time arrival predictions. Very important, but it also needs to include cancellations. That was also something we didn't have in our feed at VTA until pandemic, until we were switching over to running a Sunday service because we're canceling hundreds of trips. And at LA, I saw the data, it was thousands of trips being canceled every day. What we do at Simplify Transit is service alerts. That is where we're focused for now. And that is really dependent on people like on Sabrina's team to actually create this information because they understand what's going on and more importantly, what to do about it. They can actually tell people, go to this other bus stop or wait for this next train or whatever. And then ultimately, it gets put out in a data feed like this that, again, those apps or subscriptions or a website can parse and translate from that complexity into something that's really simple and clear to a rider. I'm going to go through this really quickly because there are a lot of elements to the paradigm shift that we've helped Metrolink go through, and it really depends on the agency, what your team is, what your channels are, what tools you've been using, and so there's some workshopping we end up doing during our setup phases, but I think these are some of the biggest keys to having an alerts feed that is going to work everywhere. Omni-channel alerts. The header field, and again, this is in the data, there's a field called header. It has to be useful everywhere. We train folks to make it a summary of the alert, what's happening, where is it happening, when is it happening, and ideally why, and then about 100 characters. That'll work as a text message, it works as an email subject line, it can go on a digital sign, it goes on a website, it obviously can go in the apps. Descriptions or no description if there's nothing more to add. Most Metrolink alerts do not have any description because the text message says it all. If there are images that would be helpful to people, this is actually an experimental field apparently, but we make it easy to attach an image and that'll go out everywhere if there's one that's helpful. Rarely is there a URL, but sometimes like Metrolink actually is, they give people Uber vouchers if the train gets canceled, which is pretty amazing. And so we need to have a field, and this field exists in the data standard to plug that in. If there is no helpful URL, there's no need for that. It shouldn't be there. And then automation. And I was actually just at Metrolink offices yesterday, and I was, automation and our alert templates are, I think often perceived by our customers as a time saver for them, making their job easier, which they are. But the reason I introduced them is really for quality assurance, to make it easier to create alerts correctly, easier to create good alerts, and harder to create incorrect alerts. And it actually takes more effort and more energy to go and kind of make the error, honestly, than if you just used our template. So if it doesn't affect everyone on the whole Metrolink line, you actually have to put in more energy to select the entire line and send it to too many people. We set it up so that the smoothest path is to make it more targeted. Sorry. So this is just a bit more about we have 3 automated types of automated alerts based off the trip updates feed. So you can see how these are interoperable. We can only run these if you have a good trip updates feed. We're dependent on these other sources of data, and for now, and we consume those and can turn these on, and this is what we're going to explore with Metrolink to see if that's something that would be helpful. There's a new data standard called GTFS trip modifications that I think we're doing some cool stuff with. We actually create these images on the fly automatically based on data that's in there and attach it to the alert and send it out. Everything you see here is automated. We can also add in the cause of it. We only have what we can only work with what we're provided, but this is all generated on the fly, and I'm a big believer in sending people images, even if they're looking, they have an app and they can kind of see it on a map and it's more interactive, that's great. But for other channels, like getting on the website, sending it out in a text message or email, you really need that static image. And then finally, I think it's absolutely vital and essential. Every service alert must be translated as reliably as possible into, I think I see a fist in the air, into your Title VI. If you don't work in this field, there are certain languages that are defined. So Metro has 7, I think. Always Spanish for almost every agency in the United States. And we have a custom transit glossary so we can control certain phrases or terms to make sure they're translated properly. But I think that is absolutely essential. Vital is the term. And then just in closing here, I'm going to have to go through this a little quickly here, but this is more, I guess, higher level on the data standards themselves. And this is a data context here, so I'm gonna dive into this a little bit. But a lot of these thoughts are, some of them are ideas, some of them are proposals, some are observations, some are just thoughts. But they come from having been inside of a transit agency and knowing what it's like to hear, like Metrolink has, like, you should have this GTFS updated more quickly to get the construction in there, and know that, yeah, that's a great idea. We agree. We don't have the technology that does that, and I've known what it takes to, navigate internally and kind of make those changes. And also, as a producer of data through Simplified Transit, we produce service alerts. Currently is the only data we produce, but we consume service alerts from some customers that are using another vendor to produce the alerts feed, and we consume trip updates for sure. And so these are coming from that perspective, as well as having been, including just writing Metro out to Metrolink's DOC yesterday. I'm a writer, and I've been writing since I was a kid, so mostly VTA. So I know what it's like on the other end of this and want to always keep that focus. So I think some of the things that are next for GTFS service alerts and what I'm trying to advance as I participate with mobility data and others in this field and just implementing things as a company is really this omni-channel perspective. Historically, and it's understandable, there's been a focus on trip planners as the main or really the only consumer of this data that is considered, and that's changing now. I'm changing that because we consume this data too, and there are things that you wouldn't think about in how you create service alerts if you were only thinking about apps, but when you start to think about a text message being sent, now you have to think about that. And these are the things I thought about when I was at VTA. When I was trying to write these things, it's hard to do that. There's actually a simple solution, it's the header. But that I think is the biggest change, and what I'm hoping to contribute and kind of say, hey, have you thought about, considered this? So if you have two vendors that go out and create something new, or or to an agency and a vendor, but they're not thinking about these other channels, they're going to miss things. They're going to have blind spots. Communication impact periods. These are two new fields that are being proposed that initially I was hesitant about, but now I support, but maybe not for the reason everyone else does. So right now you create a time range for an alert and you say, when it's starting, when it's ending. There's been, I guess, some confusion about whether that should be when to show it to people, which I don't want Sabrina's team to have to think about. That's not their job. Their job is to get the information out there, not to tell Transit App or Google Maps when to show it and when to stop showing it to people. That's just too much thinking. But they are the only people that know when it starts happening and when it stops happening, when the effect starts happening. And MBTA agrees with me. I think there's someone, Josh is watching, and I saw actually agrees. But for those who need the disambiguation, this is being split into two fields, the communication period. So if you want to spend the time trying to tell the apps or us when to send this information out to people, you can. We are going to use that to trigger text messages. So now you can send multiple rounds of text and email alerts. That is not why it's being proposed, but that's why I support it. We're going to use it. Impact period, we're just going to, it's the same thing it's always been, but I think for some people now there'll be more clarity, and that is what will get entered. The communication period will just be optional, So just an example of how we see what's coming down the pipeline. This is not adopted yet, but it's proposed. Someone needs to test it, and then ultimately get it into the data standard. Another thing that's a lot further out is pathway IDs, which is elevators. And I know, Nina, you're doing a lot of work getting that data stood up. It's very complex. I think BART, MTA in Maryland, Steve's, I think, watching, have done this, and probably some others I'm not aware of. If you need any help creating pathways, I would strongly recommend talking with Interline. Drew and team have built a powerful tool that I first saw at the Mobility Data workshop in Vancouver, and it was just, no need, that's done. And Nina's nodding her head. That's what they're using, I believe, right? Yeah, so there was a need for that, and it's always beautiful when the need is satisfied before anyone really realizes they needed that, and that's what I think Drew has done. And really, again, I only really care about that from our standpoint for one little piece of that, and that is elevators. We actually do this on the left there. This is Caltrain alerts. We've been doing this for year and a half, 2 years. They have elevator alerts. You can subscribe and opt in to get alerts about elevators at your stations, or not get them if you don't use the elevators. Elevator alerts are not an accessibility thing per se. I was just at Little Tokyo Station. People will use elevators for just because it's more comfortable, or because they have a bike, or because they have a stroller with them. I know a parent with a stroller. So when these are out, I just want to be clear, this is not just for people who are in a wheelchair or a mobility device. This is for all kinds of folks. And before this region hosts the Paralympics, we need to solve that. I don't think I really want to give people the option to opt into escalator alerts, because when an escalator is not working, it's called stairs, which I don't think is that big of a deal. All right? It's the elevators that matter, and that's where we're going to focus our development. But to get there, we have to have this huge, complex data set for us to just pull out just the elevators. And then I do think the image field should be adopted. It's experimental. I don't understand why we had it in from day one. This is just one of those things I don't have the energy to go push it through the pipeline of getting, moving the data standard forward sometimes, and we just adopt it, and at some point, someone will, I think, put it up to a vote. This is another topic. So there are still challenges publishing GTFS schedule data. I'm just going to leave it at that. There is a huge need, and there are actually people that have been solving that problem, or a company that are actually moving out of that space. This is a huge gap. This is the data standard that GTFS real-time is built on, and I cannot see how we can move the real-time data forward or build pathways to TXA when we can't quickly and easily update GTFS. The expectations are there, but the technology is not currently. So I don't know exactly what the solution is, but I'm happy to talk with anyone that wants to. I put on here maybe something like Blender, which is 3D modeling, open source, very powerful, supported by big companies. WordPress obviously is another example. Needs to get solved. I think there are similar needs to kind of accelerate the I shouldn't say accelerate, but really to, I guess, balance the different motivations in changing the data standards. I think sometimes you'll have too many people involved, designed by committee, and nothing ever happens. Anyone who's been in government knows about that. But then also if someone who, a couple of people just want to run ahead and move really fast, they can get a lot done, but if they've moved faster than others and not brought them along, or if they've had blind spots, then really you end up having something called a data standard that is called adopted, but is not widely used. And in my opinion, that is not a data standard. A data standard is the point of it is that everyone's using it. It's adopted, widely used. And if that's not happening, then there's been a failure somewhere along the way. I also encountered adding a very simple thing. It was a little test case. One person in the world, someone out there can veto a very good idea. Just one person. And then it can't move forward. And I might be that person sometimes, but in this other instance, it was not me. But I pointed that out to some folks, they wanted to move something forward, and I said, I don't agree. And now you see why I don't think this is good, because I don't agree with that. So we probably should change it so that I can't just alone not agree with something and not let it move forward. But there's a lot of work to be done there. That's more on the mobility data side. Nina's also on the mobility data board. So I think there's some need there. I won't get into this. We'll talk with mobility data about that. Final thought is, I think there are a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot. There are some examples out there, I think, where, there's a perception that someone supports open data, a company supports open data, and it's easy to say, it's a lot harder sometimes to walk the walk. And I can relate to this. I have a private company. It's uncomfortable to put everything out there openly and know that it can be copied because it's following an open data standard. But that's what we're doing. I made that choice. When open data standards are not as open, or when things aren't as interoperable, agencies lose, the public loses, maybe companies win, but I actually think companies lose too. We want this openness. So I was actually at the Metrolink headquarters, and they had a great, or not headquarters, but their office. When I walked right in, I took a picture of the LEED silver badge on the wall. They shouldn't have to convince me that this is a green building. Like, they just send off the specs to the U.S. Green Building Council. They evaluate it and said, oh, you guys get silver, not platinum, silver. And then you can put a badge up there. I think this, as a company, I think this would be something I would want. I'd want to be able to put that on my website saying this is what the certification we have passed. And I think that all of you who might manage procurements for a public agency, the benefit of not having to get into the weeds and keep yourself up to speed on all this stuff is huge. And be able to just say, this procurement would require a vendor to be certified by this third party, as maybe it's not, I don't think it's like silver, gold, and platinum, all that. It's like either are or you aren't. The criteria would need to be unique to each category. So a digital sign manufacturer, obviously you have to consume GTFS and GTFS real-time data and not come out saying, here, use this cool CMS we have, it's very easy to use, and that would make you not get the badge. We would have other criteria. So how this gets done, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. It doesn't actually have to cost whatever entity runs this any money, because if I want that badge and I'm gonna go make money off of that badge, obviously there's value in that. And so there's certainly some cost recovery opportunities that need to be sliding scale. If I was a nonprofit or a student, obviously I shouldn't have to pay a bunch of money, but there are really big companies that could afford it, and so I think Mobility Data's membership base is actually a really good example of that. Google and Apple pay a lot, and the other companies that are involved see value in this stuff. So last idea, if there's any questions, happy to do it. I guess we're going to close the live stream, but just got my email there if you want to reach out. Thank you.